Can Bryan Harsin still save his job at Auburn, or is change on the Plains inevitable?
Unless the man can go back to the future and rewrite history, change is inevitable. There will be a new head coach on the Plains in 2023.
One of the holdups a lot of people talk about is the lack of an athletic director at Auburn right now. Do you think that Auburn is trying to hire an athletic director before they make a move with Harsin, or do you think we'll see a move made before an athletic director is even named?
It's a nuanced situation right now, but the Tigers are in the midst of interviewing several ADs. They really like Rich McGlynn, who's a guy that has the backing of Bruce Pearl. He's in the compliance department at Auburn right now. He's an early candidate to watch. John Hartwell is a guy who really wants the job, Utah State athletics director. So that is slowing kind of the process in terms of the head coaching change and then them looking for a new head coach. I don't know if they're going to have one of those two guys or if they pick somebody else as AD ultimately be the guy to can Bryan Harsin. I don't think you want that on that guy's plate as his number one move. So maybe it's kind of a 1-2 step. You do the little dance first where you get rid of the head coach, and then you introduce the AD and say, hey, fresh start, clean slate. We're going out to find our next football coach.
That makes sense. Jesse, who do you think replaces Bryan Harsin at Auburn ultimately?
Well, I think there's a couple key candidates to watch. Obviously, Lane Kiffin is going to be on a lot of Tigers fans' minds. That would be a fun one, just with the dynamics and the kind of the relationship he already has with that state, with Nick Saban. That would be an interesting kind of battle. Would he be a great fit, though, on the Plains, considering that Auburn's worried about recruiting and going head-to-head with Alabama and Georgia, their two rivals? That's not one of Lane's strengths. So having said that, that's why I think a guy like Hugh Freeze becomes a really interesting name to watch. He continues each week to kind of make his audition for that job. Liberty just flamed BYU last week. He's going to play Arkansas here upcoming. And so I think Hugh is a guy that he's much closer to returning to the SEC than some might think. One other name to watch, dark horse here, Jeff Grimes, former Auburn O-line coach. He was there kind of during their heyday of that Gene Chizik and then the early Gus days. He's out at Baylor right now. He's now calling plays. He's a guy that a lot of influential people at Auburn seem to like too. So those are probably the three earliest names. Others could certainly become, in consideration. Matt Rule's a guy who has interest in the job. Some insiders believe could a name that we're not, thinking of. No one was linking Brian Kelly to from Notre Dame to LSU a year ago, and then boom, that came out of nowhere. So perhaps Auburn, which is, I think, a top 10, top 15 job, they're going to pull a big fish. We'll see where they go swimming.
Here's a big fish name for you. Auburn for years flirted with Jimbo Fisher when he was at Florida State. Now, is it time to maybe double back? I mean, Fisher might be looking to get out of Texas A&M soon anyway.
Yeah, but he's got an $86 million parachute, so I don't know where that thing's going to land. Auburn fired Gus Malzahn. They paid him $21.5 million to go away. For Jimbo Fisher to get out of that contract, he is owed all that money is guaranteed. So for him to get out of that contract at A&M, it would cost whoever 4 Gus Malzahns. It's just unheard of. I think, barring something that we cannot imagine, Jimbo Fisher is going to be at College Station again in 2023. We'll see how many of those awesome players he brought in this past cycle are still going to be there, but he's going to be on the sidelines for the Aggies next season.
All right. So what does a splash hire look like at Auburn? Because the Bryan Harsin era, it lacked excitement. It lacked wins, most importantly. But is it important for Auburn to make a splash hire in 2022?
I think it's important for them to find someone that can kind of bring all these warring factions, throughout their athletic department and their booster base together. And so I think it's going to take not necessarily a splash hire, but someone that's an organizer, someone that can actively, recruit head to head against the likes of Kirby Smart and Nick Saban. I didn't mention Deion Sanders, but I think that would be a guy that I think some folks would be like, hey, man, he has the chestiness to come in there and say, yo, this is how we're going to do it. Get on my team, get on my page, and I'm going to go recruit the players, and I'm going to hire a staff a la Sam Pittman at Arkansas. I'm gonna hire a staff that's going to go out and coach these guys.
That would be a splash. Deion Sanders would be a major splash. Jesse, what about a timeline? First of all, we're not talking about timeline for a new hire. I mean the timeline. What is Bryan Harsin looking at in terms of when is he going to find out about his future?
Yeah, and I do feel bad for Bryan Harsin because he's just been dangling. It's almost like that little thing on like the taxi cab that's just shaking. It's his job. He knows that he's gone, but he's collecting that check each week. The bye week seemed like the perfect time, but I do think, again, goes back to this nuanced situation. I think there was some concern at Auburn that the players have not quit on Bryan Harsin, and that's not nothing. This is a team that's still playing hard. They're not playing very well, but they have not stopped playing hard. And so Bryan Harsin and the Auburn Tigers want to avoid an LSU 2021 situation where Ed Orgeron gets fired. The team suddenly just lays down. A ton of guys enter the transfer portal. A ton of guys just go home. And what is LSU doing? They're playing their bowl game with less than 40 scholarship players. Auburn does not want to repeat of that situation, playing Alabama in the Iron Bowl with 40 or 50 guys on the roster. So I think the fact that we're this close to Halloween, this may linger, closer to Thanksgiving than many folks, anticipated, even as many as, 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Well, Bryan Harsin is no Marty McFly. He cannot go back and change the past. So, Jesse, keep us updated on his future. Thanks for checking in with us.
Will do.
Thank you for watching. Make sure you smash that subscribe button for me. And remember to check out all the videos on the On3 YouTube page.